All right, thank you guys for coming to the Global IT Training Citrix webinar series. Today we'll be presenting on Citrix XenApp 7.5 new features and best practices. And my name is Sean MacArthur, and my email address is up there, and David Dart, his email is up there as well. He'll be doing the technical portion of it. David, I've been working with him for quite a while. He's got numerous certifications. He is a Citrix guru, and those are some of the certifications he holds. He's also proficient in Microsoft and does some other training things as well. So he can give you some of that. He's been an author for several different technologies over the years. He's been a technical trainer since 1997. A Microsoft trainer since 2000, and he's been a Cisco trainer since 2011. So he really knows his stuff, and at this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and make him the presenter and have him go from there. All right, David, you should have it.
Thank you very much, Sean. Excellent. So, all right, so let me go ahead and show my screen here, get rid of some stuff, and put this back up. All right, you should be seeing my screen right now. Let's see. I don't see a hand raise on mine there, Sean. So we'll just.
I can see you and hear you. You're good.
Okay, I'm good. All right. All right. Well, as Sean so eloquently put, I'm a CCI trainer with Citrix, and I work with Citrix. I'm currently this week piloting their latest class, XenApp 7.5 and Desktop 7.5, with their practices. So I'm in the process of troubleshooting the labs and editing the textbook for Citrix as they begin to roll out the training for this particular technology in the environment. So it's kind of nice. I get to do a little bit of everything as we are rolling out these new technologies. I was also one of the first instructors in the country last year to roll out the Desktop 7 as they brought that into full production. So been working with the Citrix environment for a while, and with the new Zen desktop. So last year they came out, Citrix came out and they said that, we're going to be ending XenApp 6.5 and we're going to move on to just Zen desktop. And they did that for a while, but then they came out and they decided, well, the XenApp is our flagship product, so let's bring it back in. So they brought the XenApp 7.5 back into the system, and they added some new features. They changed the way we deploy it so that we deploy the system using different protocols rather than the IMA protocol. So if you're used to the XenApp using IMA and using that localhost cache, we no longer use those. So we're going to discuss some of the technologies that we use in the XenApp 7.5 environment. I'll throw out some best practices for creating the environment itself, and how you can scale it up a little, as you move on in your enterprise and in your deployment. So we're going to just go ahead and do a little bit of talking, and I'm going to do a little bit of demonstration. So we'll be going in and we will be demonstrating how to publish applications inside of the new XenApp 7.5. We're going to look at Storefront, how Storefront works, and we're going to look at how to monitor the system. So let's go and dive right into what we want to look at. So we're looking at, when we're dealing with XenApp, some of the new features that we're using for XenApp, and some of the ones that a lot of people are really interested in are, well, what's new inside of XenApp 7.5, and some of them are exciting, some of them are just really helpful to have. So one of the first things we have will be seamless local applications. And what we do with seamless local applications is the user may have an application that's on their local machine, say a CD burner application, and they're running a server desktop. So they're running a session via the HDX connection, and they want to use that CD burner application within their session. So we have the ability, if you're using the Platinum version of XenApp 7.5, to run that application, and it will appear to be running inside of the server desktop session. So that's very nice. We've also got the new FlexCast management architecture. We're going to show you a little bit of the architecture. XenApp 6.5 used that IMA. So use an incident management architecture, and your data collectors would communicate with, and all your XenApp controllers would communicate with the data store, and they would create their local host cache. And if the SQL server went down, you were still good to go. You could still manage your deployment. Have two separate deployments. You'd have your XenApp deployment and your XenDesktop deployment. With the FlexCast management architecture, what Citrix has done is they have merged these two technologies into one, eliminated the IMA, and now we can publish both applications and desktop applications of technology. So it's an improvement over the previous architecture in the system. It makes publishing applications much easier. We also have, as another one of the new technologies, it will be hybrid cloud provisioning, which helps to eliminate the CapEx, the capital expenditure you might need to have to create your deployment environment. So, and you can be seasonal about it. So you can deploy your controllers, which are the machines that take the place of your XenApp controllers. These are going to be delivery controllers. You can replace those from inside your network and put them out on the cloud, either a public cloud such as the Amazon cloud, or you can do an internal private cloud. So we can do that and help to maximize our resources without spending a lot of money. We've also, they've included the ability to do the app DNA to test the applications that you're going to be using in your system. This will be a platinum version of the XenApp 7.5. It'll come with that. You'll be able to come in and test your applications, validate that everything's going to work. And additionally, with 7.5, they've come in and they've updated the receiver and the storefront for the XenApp 7.5 environment. So we're using Storefront 2.5. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but it's backwards compatible with all the older versions. However, as ancillary to that, one of the things that they have done is they have announced that they will continue to provide web interface if you're using web interface. So continue to provide web interface through August of 2016, at which point it will be end of life. They're not going to be making any more developments on it, but they will still have that out there for you to use if you need it. So you do have those options if you want to use web interface inside of your system. So if you're using it, you can continue to use it on your system. So those are some of the main new features of XenApp 7.5. We've got some additional things that we come in that deal with a lot of the XenDesktop, but it becomes very scalable. So, oops, you see the right screen there. Hang on 1 second. Hang on 1 second here. So, with XenApp 7.5 and part of the FlexCast system, what we've done is we've come in and we've simplified the management of the XenApp environment. We've removed a lot of the consoles. We've put them all into one location, and even if you decide to power up your system and go on and do the full-on version of the XenApp XenDesktop 7.5 environment, you'll still be able to use the same console. We have 3 consoles that we are going to be using within the XenApp environment. We have Citrix Studio, which is an upgrade from the Desktop Studio that we saw inside of the XenDesktop 5.6 environment. Now it's used in both XenApp 7.5 and XenDesktop 7.5. We have the Storefront console, which replaces the web interface console that we had, and we also have another tool called Citrix Director. This is our monitoring console that you can use inside of your environment. And I've already prepped an environment for you to for us to look at in the system, and we're going to go and we're going to look at a machine first. This is your Citrix Studio that you will see inside of your controller or an additional machine that you install this component on. This is what we use to monitor and manage everything inside of your XenApp 7.5 environment. And we have a couple of components. We have machine catalogs where we create our application servers. We have, and then we deliver them out to our users. We can do our group policies. So if you're interested in doing Citrix group policies, these are all combined into one location. And I do want to show you one particular new feature that if you're used to the XenApp 6.5 environment or even the XenDesktop 5.6 environment, what they've done with the policies. Rather than have two separate policies broken out into computer policies and user policies, they've come in and they have combined all the policies into one container object so that when you go to edit these policies, you're going to see all of them in one location. So we have some computer settings within this. We have user settings within this. So we have all these settings in one location. So if you're unclear of where to find a policy, you can always just flip back and forth and get those policies within one location. So this is one option we have for defining group policy within the Citrix environment. Now, the best practice on this is to not use this. Even though it's there, the best practice is to not use the Studio version of policies, but rather to use the Windows policies. So we'll launch the Group Policy Manager. And within the Group Policy Manager, we can be a little more granular about where we want to set our policies. So if we have some particular policies that we want to apply just to an OU, say our virtual desktops, I can create a policy for that particular component. I'll just do a quick and dirty one. And I can look, and if you're familiar with XenApp 6.5, you'll see that the policies are broken out still in the user and computer settings, but we have very specific Citrix policies that have been added. And the added bonuses to this is you no longer have to bring in these Citrix extensions. They're automatically installed on the XenApp 7.5 controller machines. You no longer have to do that. So that makes it very nice and very easy. So same policies exist here that you'd see inside of Studio. So that makes it relatively quick and easy to manage your policies on your system. So that's managing the policies that you can do on your system. So the best practice, even though you can do it inside of Studio, is to go ahead and use group policy. Now, why do they have it in both places is the usual question that I get. Well, we have it in both places in case your Citrix team isn't Active Directory capable. There's a delineation of duties in your environment. So your Citrix team will come in and do Studio. If they're lucky and they can work with Active Directory, we use the Active Directory one. So this is your Studio console, and we have the ability to come in. We can manage our administrators. We can manage the controllers, and we're going to come back and touch on our controllers in just a moment. And we're going to look at the architecture, the new architecture you'll see, and licensing, which is really nice. Now within XenApp, we have the similar licensing components inside of this environment, but now we have the ability to add our licenses right here. You can manage everything within your Studio console. You don't need to bounce on over to your license server and log on to that. You can do it all right here. And I'm having some network problems, so it's obviously not showing up. It should pop in here in just a second. There it goes. So we have our licensing, so we can change our license server here without going into group policy, which we used to have to do. So we can just come in and change our license server from one location. We can change our product edition that we currently have. This one I'm currently running is in desktop, pretty much the same thing. But if I'm running XenApp Platinum Edition and I later come in and I purchase this in desktop, all I need to do is come in, pop it on over, and I'm good to go. So this is licensing, and this is our Studio. And we're going to come back in just a moment and look at how you actually publish applications inside of the XenApp 7.5 Studio environment. The other tool I mentioned was the Storefront server console. So this is our Citrix Storefront. This is where we've got our system where we can come in and create our stores for our users to access via a web browser or a receiver, whichever one they choose to use. We have this one location. This takes the place of the web interface console. Now, one of the nice things about Storefront that has changed is you no longer have to create a services site or a website. We create a store, and it takes care of all the rest itself. So you no longer have to come in and create those two separate entities. You create it, it's up and running. You can use either receiver access or browser access for your users. The last tool that I mentioned was the Director tool, and this is the Director tool. We'll come back into this a little bit later. This is where they've taken the desktop Director from Xen Desktop 5.6 and Edge Site, and they've merged these two products into this one particular component, so you can look at what's going on inside of your environment. You can look at, what kind of connection failures do you have on your machines. So this is a user connection. Do we have any failed desktops? Do we have any failed server machines? So we can look at all of these machines that we have the capability to publish out to our users and see what's going on. And we can look at this in a hour-long real-time data, or we can pop on over and look at historical trends, where we can come in and look at the historical trends of what's been going on within our network within the last 24 hours. Now, you'll notice that on mine, I did have a connection failure yesterday. I was having some issues, and I was able to come in and troubleshoot and fix that. So you can look at it within the last 24 hours. You can look at it within the last 7 days, month, year, or you can customize it. So all this information will be stored inside of a database. So we're going to come back. We'll look a little bit more at this a little bit later. And just to show you something on, oops, I hit the wrong one there. If I bounce back to my controller just very quickly and I click on the Configuration tab, this is where you can come in and look at, well, where are the databases for that monitoring log? And so here we have the monitoring log right here, if it'll click on it, and it tells you where the database is, and you do have the option of changing where that database is. Another difference between XenApp 7.5 and the 6.5 is configuration logging. In 6.5, you needed to go in and you had to configure configuration logging to be turned on. With the 7.5, it's automatically on, so you no longer have to come in and turn this on. It'll automatically be on. It'll automatically be logged. You don't need to do anything. So this is the three main tools, and you will use the Studio for every product of the XenApp Xen Desktop 7.5 environment. So we're going to be using it for XenApp for publishing out server desktops and applications. So those are your three main tools there. So Studio, Storefront Console, and Director. So they've made it a little more efficient. Basic hardware requirements, we're looking at using Windows Server 2012 R2, or Windows Server 8 R2. So those are the hardware requirements for the XenApp 7.5 components in the system. So we need about 100 megabytes. And the nice thing, we're going to talk about the differences between the XenApp 7.5 and the 6.5 in the way we implement this particular environment. 100 megabytes of space. We're going to use .NET 3.5. You only need that if you're using 2008 R2. For the most part, we're going to do .NET 4.0 and PowerShell and some Visual C components in the environment. Some of the supported hypervisors, 6.0.2 and above for Xen Server. We have the Hyper-V options that are available, and then vSphere are all supported on this particular environment. And when we're looking at these, the database, and this is the important part, where the change that you will see between XenApp and XenApp 6.5 and 7.5 is the database. Previously, you were allowed to use Oracle. Now, we can no longer use Oracle. Now we're just going to be using the Enterprise Standard, Enterprise Edition SQL Server 2012 Service Pack 1 or 2008 R2 Service Pack 2. And which version you use is going to make a difference on what you have for the high availability in your system. Now, a best practice, and this is something that Citrix recommends, a best practice for your database is to do a mirror node on your system. So we want to do a 3-node mirror where you have your principal mirror and your witness server on your system. The nice thing is, if you do the mirroring, you can use for your principal. Let's see if I can write it relatively nicely. You can use your principal. You can use standard or enterprise for that. When you want to do your witness, you can use the free version of Express, so you don't need to pay for an additional license on your system. So these are the databases that are supported inside the XenApp environment. Well, let's look at the architecture. So we have an architecture that we look at that's slightly different from the XenApp 6.5. This is new. We're using that FlexCast management architecture. So we're using that FMA architecture within the XenApp environment. And we've included Storefront. Web interface will also be supported in the system, and we still have the receiver. Some of the differences are Storefront will actually authenticate with Active Directory. Web interface would always pass this on to the XML broker. So the user will authenticate with Storefront. Then we have Active Directory. Once that's authenticated, the Storefront will then pass the credentials to the delivery controller. This is our main guy. This is the main component inside of our environment that provides all of our resources. This delivery controller replaces your XenApp controllers. And the difference being is that inside of your system with your delivery controllers, you only need one or two in most environments because your users will never be connecting up to the delivery controller. What we're looking at is providing server OS machines for our system so that we can publish applications. So you'll silo your servers into groups with just Windows 2012 on it. You don't need to install anything other than 2012. No more XenApp controller components installed. We don't need to install XenApp 7.5 on it. All we do is install it on the delivery controller. We want to create at least 2 controllers for failover in the system. And then all of the machines will register with that controller and provide access to the user to the applications and or desktops that you've given them. So that delivery controller is the most important component inside of your system, so you want 2. The difference being with the XenApp 7.5 environment, it's a fully relational database. So the controllers do not communicate with each other, which differs from the IMA communication in the 6.5 where the controllers were communicating back and forth all the time using that IMA over port 2512. Now we're using FMA to communicate directly with the SQL Server database. So the controllers are isolated from each other, and a failure of one will not impact the other one. A failure of both, then you need to look into creating more high availability. So consequently, your SQL Server is a single point of failure. So you need to ensure that you have high availability set up on your SQL Server database. That's where the mirroring comes in. There are multiple ways of doing high availability. You can do the mirroring, the clustering, or hypervisor high availability, but the best practice for Citrix is to do the mirroring. It's the fastest available on your system. And we still have the additional components. We still have our license server. Nothing's new under the sun there. We have Studio, which is replacing the App Center from XenApp 6.5. And then we have Director for our monitoring within our system. And then on the Storefront server, we do have that Storefront console that we're going to be using. So we're going to look at very quickly, this is just a big chunk of what we're looking at when we're looking at breaking everything out in for high availability. We have our user layer. The only thing we need on the user layer is the receiver. Storefront, we're definitely going to have. You may or may not be using NetScaler in your system. You might. You never know. Some companies, if it's an internal only, NetScaler necessary, but a nice feature if you ever get a chance to install it. And so the delivery controller sits in the middle here between your Windows infrastructure, you got your database server, your license servers, and your resources. So how do you get these resources out to our users? This is what we're looking for. We, in particular with XenApp, with the operating system, what we're looking at is we can give our users a server desktop. So we can still give a server desktop. We can also give out our users applications. And the publishing of applications is a little bit different. So we look at how we're going to publish. And I'm going to go in and do a demonstration on how we do it. But we're going to talk about a couple of things that are a little bit different. In XenApp 7.5, your application servers are no longer multiple master systems wherein each server requires updating. For instance, in a XenApp 6.5 environment, if you have, say, 10 XenApp servers that are hosting applications, when you update an application, you need to ensure that all 10 machines have been updated. So you need to go in, and if one of them is not updated, and a user is brokered into that server, they're going to get an error message. So then we have a multiple master system. In XenApp 7.5, what we have is you create a master machine, and you'll excuse my writing here. We're going to create a master virtual machine that has 2012 server on it. We'll install all of our apps on that one server, and then we'll use Studio, and we will clone out this system multiple times for as many servers as we need in our system. So we can have 4 machines. All of these machines will be based on this master machine, so anything that's on this will be on these machines. When I need to update these, put in a new application, put in an update, I come into my system, I apply my updates onto this system here, and then I push them out to all the machines, and then all the machines will automatically have those updates on the system. And as part of what XenApp can do, you have 2 options for creating these machines. You have more than 2, but the 2 main ones are machine creation services, which comes with XenApp 7.5, or you can use PVS or provisioning services. Either one you can use to create the images for your environment. So we're going to use that single master image, and we're going to change the way we publish applications. So now, rather than applications being published one at a time in your App Center, we publish them as a group. So let me come on over to my system. So I'm on my system here, and I'm going to go to my delivery groups, which is analogous to the worker groups inside of XenApp, and I want to publish some applications. So I already have a hosted applications delivery group, analogous to a worker group, and I want to publish some applications so that my users can come in and use these. So all I do is I right-click on the hosted application. I'm going to add in an application. System says, all right, we're going to add an application. Click Next. The system will query one of the machines, provide you with a menu of all the applications that are installed on this machine, and it doesn't matter which machine. If I created 100 machines from one master, they're all going to be identical. So the system will then say, all right, well, what do you want to publish? Well, I'll just go and click a couple of things here on the system. We'll just do character map, because that's a real important one to do. We can come in, I can do Firefox. I can do, I've got Notepad already published. I can do Paint. I can automatically publish these on our system all in one fell swoop. So I could literally publish 100 applications in about 30 seconds on my system. And the nice thing is they will all have the same settings. So you no longer need to worry about session sharing settings with encryption or video resolution. They're all going to take on the same settings. Well, now someone once asked, well, what happens if I have an application that's not actually installed, it's just on the server? Well, that's quite easy. We just go in and we say, let's add an application manually, and this will take us to a screen that is very analogous to what was in the XenApp 6.5 environment, and we'll come in and see, well, what's the path to the executable? So you'll just browse. It will then communicate with the XenApp 7.5 server, and you just track to where that application is, and you'll be able to publish it on your system. And then you have the additional things of command line arguments, working directories. So this is very useful when you have a particular application that you need to publish multiple times. Now you may or may not have noticed where Notepad here has got that _1. That is a visual clue that tells you this is already published somewhere in your site. Do you want to publish it again? Sure, I want to publish it again, but this one I might want to make a little bit different. So I would click Application Properties, and I could come in and I could change the name of it. So I'll just go ahead and change this to NP, give it a name. And how do we want to deliver it? What do we want to do on this particular application? But on this one, we're going to change something. We're going to change the visibility. Who can actually see this? Now in XenApp 6.5, when you published applications, you published it out to very particular users or groups in XenApp. In XenApp 7.5, you publish it out to everyone you want to see the server, and then you come in and you limit the visibility of particular applications. It's kind of like reversed. So I could come in and limit this for our users. So this is the publishing of the applications. I'm going to just go ahead and leave that alone. And I'll just go ahead and click OK. and next, and the system says, okay, we're going to publish these. We'll click Finish. And then if I go over to an endpoint device within my system, here are the applications that I have. I'll go ahead and look at the ones I have available. So notice I have Calculator, Notepad, Server, Desktop. Okay, well, let's refresh this puppy. So I'll refresh. And hopefully if I did it right, they should show up. And there they are. So they actually showed up on the system. So the machines will show up so I can then subscribe to these within my environment, and the user will have this available on any machine that they come into, and we'll talk about when we get into Storefront. So that's publishing applications inside of the XenApp 7.5 environment, which is a little bit, it's different than the way you're used to doing it inside of XenApp, so it makes it much easier. Additionally, it's very, very easy, and we actually had a discussion about this in my class this morning. It's very easy if I've got some hosted application servers, and if I pull up my Zen Center, you'll see where's my hosted apps somewhere in here. I've got some applications in here. There's my app server right there. If I need more, all I need to do is add more. All I need is right mouse click. All I need to do is add machines. No more machines, so I need to go to catalogs, that's why. I just need to go into my system and say, you know what, the servers I have are overloaded, so now I need to add some additional machines. So you don't need to install anything. You just come in and you take your application servers. There's my XenApp applications. I want to add in machines. The system will prompt you, how many do you want? You know what, I need 3 more machines. We'll just click Next. The nice thing is it will automatically add it into Active Directory. You don't need to do anything. We'll click Next, and we'll click Finish. System will create the machines. And if I go over to Zen Center, there it's creating the machines. And there's my new servers, App Server 2, and 5 and 6. So I'm getting more machines added in here as we speak. And then I can then come in and add them into my delivery controller to give out to my users. So I can easily, if I'm overloaded, bring in new machines very rapidly. So that's publishing of apps and managing of your app servers. Also, some Storefront. Storefront 2.5 is the new version that they're working on to get everybody over onto, but they are still supporting that web interface 5.4. Got some new features. One with Storefront 2.5, it supports receiver for HTML5. So if your endpoint device users are unable to install the receiver on their system, we can default over and allow them to use that HTML5 engine, and their applications or desktops will launch inside of their browser, which is very, very nice. And now a new one with 2.5 is parallel resource enumeration. With this one, in previous versions of Storefront and web interface, when you had multiple deployments of farms or sites, whether they are XenApp or XenDesktop sites, the system would go through and enumerate applications sequentially. Now we'll do parallel resource enumeration, so we'll enumerate applications from all of these particular deployments simultaneously. This helps to speed up the time that the user, or minimize the time that the user has on their system to wait to get everything. And we have some new authentication. We have pass-through authentication within our for our system. So we got pass-through authentication for receiver from for web. We've got smart card authentication. We've got NetScaler smart card to log in. We also have what are called mandatory applications. And I'm going to bounce back to that one in a second. And to support XenApp 6.5, they've thrown in anonymous access in the system. So you still have the ability to log on anonymously and run applications. Well, let's go back to this mandatory application. A mandatory application is one that the user cannot eliminate from their screen. And here's where we see a divergence from the XenApp, the web interface environment, and our environment. So if I go to my endpoint internal device and I have these applications or resources on the screen, I'm going to remove all these guys. I'm just going to take them off. I'm going to unsubscribe to them. Now, when we unsubscribe to an application, what we're doing is we're telling Storefront not to remember that. Because with Storefront, the Storefront 2.0 and above, they have an internal database. And whenever a user comes in and says, you know what, I want to subscribe to Calculator, it puts it on the desktop. The fact that they put this on the desktop will automatically be written into the Storefront subscription database on the Storefront server and synchronized among all your Storefront servers. And then anytime the user comes in, wherever they come in from, whether it's their office machine, their iPhone, their iPad, or their computer at home, when they log in through Storefront, it will automatically remember the subscriptions they have. Well, the problem is, or the issue is that a lot of times when new users come in, they see this blank screen and they go nuts. So what you can do is, I'm going to refresh my apps, you can make applications mandatory so that even if the user removes it, they can't bring it back in. You can also take an application and get it there. Notice that my Notepad application is mandatory. You can also come in and make it auto. And auto means, I'll change this, auto means that we're going to automatically, on behalf of the user, subscribe to that application. And this is what we call the keywords feature. So we keyword and we would just say auto. Click OK. It'll update it. So I'll go back to my system. I'll refresh. And now Paint came in, it was automatically subscribed. Now the difference between these two is on Notepad this was mandatory. So I'm going to remove Notepad and I'm going to remove Paint. Paint was automatically subscribed. And I'm going to refresh my apps again. And notice that Notepad came right back. So when it's mandatory, whenever the user logs out and comes back in, it will automatically pop back up onto their screen. So you don't need to worry about your users not having the applications that you want them to have on your system. So Storefront allows you to do that. You can also go into Storefront if you need to and go into the configuration file and make all applications mandatory. So you automatically come in and make them all mandatory so they'll see everything. Kind of defeats the purpose, but if that's what you want, then if that's what your environment calls for, you're good to go. So we've got those particular components with Storefront. Web interface will still be supported in the system. So we also have and we talked about the monitoring capabilities of the Citrix Director component. So we have that Citrix Director that we have that's real-time data. So you got a single pane of glass that you're using to troubleshoot and monitor your system, and you can come in and use that particular tool to monitor all your users. So I'm going to go back. I've already logged into, there we go. Let's get this guy back up. I've already logged into Director, and we have a couple of things that we have in Director. Our dashboard gives your help desk team an at-a-glance what's going on in your system. Hopefully these are all green. That means that nothing's going wrong. If they are, if everything's fine, they'll automatically open up in a collapsed state. We can look at the number of sessions that we currently have connected into our system. We can look at an at-a-glance of how long the logon's been taking, and it gives us an infrastructure overview of our system. We can also tunnel down into each one. So we can look at the historical trend, which I mentioned earlier, and this is going to give us an overview of everything that's been going on in our system. We can also, when we're looking at sessions, we can actually look at the sessions that are working currently inside of our environment. So right now I've only got one user, but I have that one user. It gives me information of what the session state is, how long it's been active, where they're running applications. I have options. I can send a message to the administrator. I can log them off. I can disconnect them. So I have options. Now this is really nice when you have hundreds and hundreds of users. You can come in and selectively choose users to send messages or log them off. But I also have the ability in the system here of tunneling down and looking at exactly what the administrator is doing. I think I typed it right. Let's try it again. So I'm going to look at the administrator, and I can look at what's going on his system at a glance. So this is telling me what he's currently running on the system. And I can look at the sessions he's running. I can log him off. I can actually shadow him. Now, one major difference with this environment is that the shadowing is not the shadowing we're used to with IMA. This is just going to be a remote remote assistance window. So we no longer have that shadowing that we have inside of XenApp 6.5. And if I had multiple machines available, so this particular user has a server desktop available as well as hosted applications, we can come in and we can look at it. And then if we need to, we can we can tunnel down even further and look at more information of what's going on for this particular user, what applications they're running, the machine that they're currently connected on. We can look at the settings on that. We can come in and control the session. We can log them off. We can disconnect them. We can shadow, send a message. We can also look at all the policies that are being pushed out to that particular session. So you have the ability to look at that. And then if we scroll down, we can look at, well, when this user came on, what happened during their logon? What took the most time? GPOs, HDX, what took the most time. And then we have some personalization settings that we can use in our environment with XenApp 7.5. One of the personalizations we have would be the Citrix Profile Management, which is installed by default now. You no longer have to download and install that. So that makes that very nice. So we have this tool that we can come in and we can monitor and manage our environment from one location. And so XenApp 7.5, what does it come in? What is it really? Well, it comes in 3 versions. Advanced, Enterprise, and Platinum. Each one just builds on the previous one that we have. One of the each component just gives you more functionality. Now, the nice thing about all of this will be if you decide today that you want to come in and use the Advanced or Enterprise version or Platinum, and 6 months from now your boss comes in and says, hey, Dave, let's go ahead and use the full functionality of this technology. All you need to do is buy a new license. Go into your center, install the licensing, read them into the license server, change the setting in Studio, and you automatically have the ability to come in and do desktops and everything else that you might want to do inside of your environment. So it's all about licensing. You don't need to install any additional components in your system. So who's this class meant for? Who is XenApp used for? Anyone preparing to run XenApp, Citrix XenApp 7.5. Anyone who wants to do that. Anyone who wants to come in and learn the advanced features, or if you're looking to migrate to XenApp 7.5. So at this point, I think I'm going to turn this meeting back on over to Sean. Sean, if you want, do I give you?
Yeah, I'm here. So let's do this. I'll make myself presenter number 1. And number 2, we've had several questions. I want to make sure that these get answered.
Okay.
So the first one here, and I'll read them out loud so everyone else can see them. But there's a guy here who's a newbie at Citrix, and he's currently trying to run my published apps, but he receives an error, cannot start the app Adobe. Can you tell me what the issue potentially is? I know that's a pretty vague statement, but do your best.
Yeah, it could be. There could be a number of reasons why you can't launch the application. The hosting machine could be in maintenance mode. It may not have been registered correctly. There may be there's probably something going on under the hood that, without getting in and tunneling into your system, would be very difficult. Usually, when you can't run an application, a lot of times there's something wrong with the network connection. You can't get that HDF connection going. So, wish I could be more specific without looking at your system.
All right. So here's another question. Is there an equivalent to EdgeSite 5.4 email alerting functionality?
No, not in this particular component. That emailing function was really nice. There's an additional EdgeSite component that you install on NetScaler that I believe does have that email capability on it, but not the EdgeSite component that we see inside XenApp 7.5 that comes with the system. So sorry.
All right, here's another one. Have they fixed the speed issue with GPO/policies from 6.5?
Yes. So the GPOs, it's gotten much better. The IMA communication and all those connections, the speed issues have been improved on. We'll say that.
Okay. So if policies are combined, how do we know how they will be applied, i.e. whether to restart a machine or relog on to force a policy to apply?
Okay. Actually, that's a very good question. If you're doing it in Studio, the system automatically has filters, and that we use to apply the policies. And if the policy is a computer policy, the filters for the computer machine will automatically pop in. Now, the difference with Studio with other than with Windows machines is that when the machine starts or comes into play, the virtual delivery agent, we didn't talk about that. That's a component that you install on your master machine, which is then pushed out to all the clones, will automatically be receiving the policies through the VDA on the system. So the VDA and the SQL Server database will push out the policies on that. Now with the user policies, those are automatically going to be applied whenever the user logs onto a system. So if you have new policies and there's somebody already in the system, they're going to need to log off and log back in order for the policy to be applicable to them. But any new session that they would use would automatically have the policies.
Great. So will the licensing overview be able to actually pull the info from Citrix licensing appliance anytime soon?
You mean in Studio? It was up. Yes. So let me. So in the Studio, it's actually communicating with the license server itself, and it pulls that data down. So within the Studio, we didn't see that component in the demonstration, but you can add your licensing, and it communicates with the license server, so that there's a synchronization going on. So I can add in new administrators; they'll automatically be created on the license server, and vice versa.
Okay. What if your current XenApp farm is comprised of physical servers? Will the updates still be sent out to all servers in the XenApp group?
Well, that's kind of a difficult question to answer, because with XenApp you can't migrate with XenApp. So I'm going to take a leap that says they want to use their physical servers as components on the system. That's a little bit trickier, and it's a little more complicated to do those particular updates, because they weren't created using a single master machine. So those are going to be, if you're going to continue to do that, you will need to do some updates on those.
And that kind of leads to the next question. Can I host all components on physical servers?
Yes.
Okay.
The problem, well, let me elaborate on that just a tiny bit. The downside to hosting it on physical servers is you don't have the power management functions that your XenApp environment has available to it via the controller, because it's not on the hypervisor. So there are some drawbacks to doing that. There are some high availability benefits, obviously, but yeah. So.
And that's just general virtualization benefits for anything, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Any advances to the print mapping or driver issues?
Yes, we didn't talk about this, but they've come in. They've improved the universal print driver. They've eliminated some legacy stuff. They've also got a new component called the universal print server, which is a component you install on top of a Windows print server that allows you to use the universal print driver on your VDA, on your virtual machines, and utilize some compression. So it maximizes your network capabilities.
Great, thank you. And someone said here, asked a little question, I've heard that there is a 6.5 to 7.5 migration tool coming. Is any truth to that?
I've heard that. I don't know if there's any truth. The technologies are so different. You're going from an IMA to that FMA, the FlexCast. So I can't say yes or no. I've heard rumors of it, but what Citrix does on that, I'd have to do more heavy digging on that. But at this point, no, there's nothing there. It's a migration.
Here's a question: do we require a separate license for Director?
Nope. Comes with Zen Desktop. It's automatic.
And here's a question I could probably answer. Can I use VMware or Hyper-V for the servers? And I think that was a yes.
Yes, you can use the big three. You can use all the big three on those.
Yeah, I know I've implemented it on VMware for several customers.
Yeah.
And here's another guy, again, kind of an ambiguous question. I was unable to discover apps as just shown. Any ideas why I do not see all my apps?
Yeah, sometimes that does happen when you create your catalog and you do delivery group. Sometimes they don't, the applications don't show up. Usually the best thing to do is just delete your catalog and start from scratch and do it over again. That seems to clear up the problem. It's faster than actually getting under the hood and actually fixing it. So that does happen. That's one reason why when I create my catalogs, when I'm out doing publishing of applications, I make sure that the servers are booted up first before I go to publish the applications, before I even begin the process. That makes it a little bit easier. I'd also check to see if the servers are actually registering. So make sure that they're actually registering on their system.
Here's another one. Does Director come with an enterprise version?
You mean the licensing version? It comes with the system. It should be automatically on the system.
Okay, so you don't have to pay for the license, whatever you.
Yeah.
It's included.
Yeah,
okay, great. Well, good deal. If there's any more questions, please ask them up. I want to thank David for coming out today and bringing your knowledge to some of these people. Due to overwhelming demand, we will be doing this again. We're also going to try to hold some additional webinars on some advanced topics and things like that on a regular basis. When we can get David, he's pretty in demand from a Citrix perspective. So I was talking to him yesterday, and he's pretty slammed. So we'll try and get him to do some more advanced webinars in the future and hopefully get you guys back for that. So next steps here. For those of you interested in really learning about the upcoming 7.5 in more than a 45-minute setting, we do have some upcoming classes. Send an email to John up there at that email address, and he'll get you dates and times and pricing and things like that. We are having a special, so enter your name for a drawing for up to $500 off an upcoming class. And I am recording this webinar, which I'm going to go ahead and stop right now, and it will be available at that hyperlink right there here probably within an hour or two.